The following day, Rein was walking around the town with Sora and Runa, while Tanya's massive cannons were asleep. But as they walked, they smelled something delicious and asked him if they could try it. So after buying some, they began swallowing Rein's sausage, and thought that his meat was the best thing they'd ever tasted. Once they were done, they asked Rein about the special ability he gained from taming them, because Kanade had gifted him overpowered strength, while Tanya gifted him near limitless mana. So when they asked him what ability he gained from them, he realized that he hadn't gained anything. However, Rein comforted them on the head, telling them that he didn't need to gain anything from them, because they were his precious comrades that were going to be by his side. And that's all he'd ever wish for. Those words made them happy, and they wanted to devour more of Rein's sausage. But as they walked to the shop, a mysterious man told them to stop in their place and ask for the names of the girls. However, both of them were intimidated and tried introducing themselves. So the man began laughing, saying they will become his wives. The twins thought he was disgusting, but the man introduced himself as Edgar, the son of the Horizon Lord. So they had no choice but to accept his royal commands. As he snapped his fingers, his guards circled around Rein, and he told him to hand over his girls. But Rein swore that he would never give up the friends he cared about. After letting those words out, Edgar told his men to attack him. However, they were all knocked out by Rein, and the guards warned Edgar that he wasn't a regular man. So Rein told him to give it up already, because he'd never give his girls up. Just then, Edgar ordered his guards to point their weapons at the civilians, saying that they're nothing but tools he'll be using to get what he wants. As he assessed the situation, Rein realized it would be impossible to save all of them, but the girls offered to save them with their magic. However, Rein knew that having them reveal their fairy magic might cause them to be outcasts of the city, and as he wondered what else he could do, he realized that he'd gained a new ability to cast multiple spells at once. So he summoned 30 different magical sigils and unleashed his fireball to burn all of the soldiers. This was the special skill he'd gained from the fairies, and he ordered Edgar to never show his worthless face again. Before leaving, Edgar swore that he'll get his revenge, and as his guards chased after him, the fairies thanked him for saving them. Along with them, all the other people thought he was cooler than the hero. But an old disgusting hag told them that they should leave now that they're safe and go somewhere far away. From the distance, the hero smiled as he pointed his ring at Rein. When they got back to their inn, Rein heard from the old hag that Edgar had been kidnapping any girl he thought was attractive, and tortured them inside of his mansion. After all, he was the Lord's only son, so the Lord would silence all of the victims and kill them if they defied his orders. But when Tanya heard those words, she thought it was time to burn his entire mansion, saying that she wouldn't allow him to come after Sora and Runa, or any of the other townspeople again. However, Rein knew they needed to be careful, but wanted to save all of them. Still, he knew he was nothing but a beast tamer, but Kanade knew that Rein couldn't abandon this city, and Tanya told him that they all know how he thinks, and that he wants to save everyone he meets. So they promised they would always support him, and Rein was glad to have the best comrades, so he told them that they would be saving the city from their oppressive rulers. Later that night, Horizon's Lord was going to leave on vacation, but as soon as he left, Edgar ordered his strongest knight to bring Rein's head to him, paying him hundreds of gold coins for his service. Once he was gone, he remembered the humiliation Rein put him through, and rang his bell for a small beast girl to appear. But as soon as she did, he grabbed her and began beating her, but all she could do was wish for someone to come and help her. The following morning, Rein headed to the Order of the Knights and tried to report Edgar's assault on them the previous day. But as soon as he let those words out, Gillett appeared, saying that there won't be any need for the Knights to investigate it, and said that accusing the Lord once again will have him inside the execution chamber. A few minutes later, while Rein was walking with Kanade, a hot knight girl appeared from the alley, saying that she wanted to thank him for his actions. The knight introduced herself as Stella, the vice commander of the Knights, and said that she's heard about how he defeated the most dangerous bandit group in all of the lands, but needed his help to bring order to her town. All of the knights had become corrupted by the money the Lord gave them, and covered up all of the Lord's crimes, especially Gillett, the commander of the knights. So she knew that with their help, there might be a chance to save the country. But when Rein wondered if they could trust her, Kanade told him that she seemed like an honest girl, so Rein decided to believe her. However, they needed a plan to obtain evidence of their corruption, so over the next few days, the knights teamed up with Rein to execute their plans, and he finally received the weapons from Donovan. Eventually, they called for the knights to arrive at a mysterious building, and Stella thought it was amazing that the knights fell for their trap. The leader heard that this warehouse contained proof of their corruption, so he knew that they needed to destroy any shred of evidence, and he told his knights to destroy the target as soon as they located it. As they entered inside the building, one of his men were neutralized, and the warehouse gates were locked from the outside. With the twins freezing it down, all of the knights continued falling down, and this was the special gauntlet Rein had ordered from Donovan. But as he fired at Gillett, he was able to slash them off in the last instant, and saw that Stella had teamed up with Rein. However, she told him it was too late, as the entire order of knights were destroyed by Tanya and Kanade, and she leaped down to fight him off alone, before calling him a traitor that was destroying the city. Immediately, he began rushing to slash her down, but threw his sword to distract her, and punched her onto the ground, saying he was the justice of this world. However, she couldn't forget about the man she cared for, and rushed forward towards Gillett, slashing him down, and saying that no knight would abandon his duty for some money. A few hours later, Edgar began beating the girl after finding out that his corrupt knights were arrested. Even so, he knew that he would be able to destroy Rein with his personal guards, but the hero appeared in the window, telling him that Rein was far more powerful than he could imagine, and would be able to steal his lifestyle from him. So he threw him a ring, telling him that this ring can be used to kill off Rein, and would continue allowing him to rule over this land in whatever way he wishes. Inside of the girl's memories, she remembered the happy orphanage she used to live in, and how everyone cared about her. But now, she wished for someone to come save her. A few moments later, Stella arrived at the Lord's mansion, telling the guards that Edgar was under investigation for corruption. However, the guards screamed for backup, and their entire army appeared to surround the girls from escaping. At the same time, Edgar knew that no one could breach his army, but the girls blew his gate up as they entered inside, and he thought it would be interesting to torture even more ultimate species. Underneath the chaos, Rein infiltrated the dungeon with the fairies, and Sora activated her searching magic to trace the flow of mana in the building. But although she was able to find the location of multiple girls, she found a single source that was on par with an ultimate species, and Rein wondered what an ultimate species was doing here. So to find out if the source was an enemy, he told the girls to save the humans while he looked for the ultimate species. As the guards continued being clapped, Rein managed to find the room where the mana source was coming from. But as soon as he opened the door, he found a poor girl behind prison doors, and realized that she was even stronger than an ultimate species, because she was actually a demigod. After healing her wounds, he told her that he was here to help her, and tried comforting her, asking her for her name. The girl cried as she said her name was Nina, and hugged onto him. In that instant, she remembered the day she was kidnapped, and how her shield had prevented her from being harmed by Edgar. However, he brought out all her orphan friends, threatening to kill them if she didn't come with him. So she begged him not to harm them, but in return, he gave her a slave collar to wear, and began beating her in front of her comrades, saying she will allow him to obtain the power of the gods one day. This was the miserable life she'd been living, and Rein tried saying that he will save her, but she told him that her slave collar was impossible to take off. However, Rein told her to believe in him, and he realized that he could use his beast-taming power once again to undo the sealing powers of the collar. But the backlash of breaking the spell began electrocuting him, and Nina begged him to stop, saying that no one would be sad if she was gone. To those words, however, Rein told her that he would be sad, because even though they just met, he knew that he would be able to overcome the pain. After all, this wasn't only his strength now, but the strength of all the other girls, and using it, he was able to break the slave collar's magic, freeing Nina for the first time in 3 years. Outside the building, the knights continued destroying Edgar's guards, while Kanade and Tanya played with them as if they were toys. One of the guards screamed at the others to use the hostages as human shields, but from the sky, hundreds of fireballs burned them all down, and Sora and Runa told the girls that they'd rescued all of the hostages. Now that they were all safe, the girls decided to use all their powers, and Edgar realized that his armies were being completely destroyed, growing the curse on his ring. Inside of the mansion's hall, the girls found Rein carrying another girl, and wondered how many more bitches he would be picking up. However, Kanade thought her tail was fluffy, and promised to cuddle her every day. But as they continued playing together, the lord of the mansion appeared and wondered how they'd already made it this far. Just then, Rein restrained the ugly fatso, but after he fell onto the ground, his son appeared, summoning the fucking Grim Reaper from his ring, and killed Rein in that instant. This was all part of the hero's plan, and he was glad to have Rein die like the pathetic garbage he was before flying away. Inside the mansion, however, Rein was still alive, and all the girls hugged onto him, wondering how he was still fine after being attacked by an instant death status effect. As they wondered how that was possible, Sora decided to cast the poison status effect onto him, and thought she had accomplished her mission. All of the girls wondered what was wrong with her brain-dead actions, so she revealed that Rein hadn't gained only one power from taming 2 fairies, but instead had gained 2 abilities. One of them was the multiple spellcast ability, while the second one was the ability to nullify all special status effects cast onto him, saving him from the demon's attack. As Edgar stared in jealousy at Rein's harem, he knew that he wished they would all die, but the ring's vile powers activated and began swallowing him inside. As it fed onto his soul, Rein knew he'd felt that power before and casted a fireball with all of his mana. But the attack was unable to lay a single scratch onto the beast. From inside, piles of smoke began searing, and a hand emerged to the outside. The demon asked them if they were the ones who reawakened him, and Rein knew the presence of this demon. After all, it was the same demon that killed his parents and burned his entire homeland, leaving him stranded for his entire life. It was the same beast standing before his eyes, and it promised to kill them in the most gruesome ways possible. However, he realized there were thousands of other humans nearby, so he flew away and began preparing to hunt them. Once he arrived to the city, the demon began blowing up all of their homes and burning down the streets, but Kanade kicked him down from the sky, and the demon saw that Rein's group had managed to catch up to him. As he stared at them, Rein swore to destroy him, and Kanade launched off a building to punch him towards Tanya before she knocked him down, while Rein used his gauntlet to restrain the demon from moving. Although it didn't have any effects on the demon, it was part of their plan to distract him, and the fairies launched a massive explosion to burn the demon down. But when the dust settled, the demon walked out of it unscathed, realizing that he would need to call reinforcements to even the fight. From the ground, hundreds of demonic servants began rushing towards Rein's party, but the girls used their magical abilities to eliminate them instantly. Although they were worthless, the demon revealed that he can summon an infinite amount of them, and reminded them that he was also able to attack them at the same time. As the others ran to Kanade, Tanya flew to the sky to destroy all of the worthless monsters, and while they tried to heal Kanade, Tanya used her flaming breath to hold off the demon's attack. However, it wasn't enough to stop the demon, and after blowing her away, Rein ran to make sure she was okay. But she got up and pretended she was fine. Seeing how his attacks were ineffective, the demon decided to unleash his magical energy to the sky, raining down explosions to burn the entire city down. This was the same scene Rein went through all those years ago, so he used all of his fireballs to attack the demon, while the fairies launched a holy light sphere from the sky to pierce his heart. Just then, Rein decided to insert his warm magical energy deep into the girls to overpower them, and once it penetrated deeply inside, the girls rushed forward to beat up the demon. Just then, the fairies activated their judgment ability, and Kanade leaped from the sky to crush the demon down. But once the dust settled, the demon was still unscathed. With a single snap of his finger, he summoned hundreds of dragons and ground beasts, but the real target was the villagers of the Horizon City. So as he tried to get away, Tanya launched her fire breath towards him, but he sacrificed some of his dragons to block the attack, telling them that the battle was over. As Rein wondered how he could save all of the villagers and defeat the demon, Runa and Sora told him that they could finally be of use to him, and that they would teleport all of the villagers to safety while they kept fighting him. At the same time, Mina wondered if they should be fighting off the demon, but the hero told them that their only target was the Demon King, saying they wouldn't help any of them. After all, he knew that there was no chance for Rein to survive this demon, the same one that killed his family. Meanwhile, Sora and Runa managed to find Stella and the Knights, asking them to bring all of the citizens back so they could teleport them away. But when they were gone, they told Nina that everything would be fine since Rein would save them. At the same time, Kanade continued beating all of the demons while Tanya burnt them away, and they told the others to get away safely. On the other side of the city, the guards had gathered all the remaining citizens, but they realized that the girls were fairies, and couldn't trust them since fairies hated humans. However, the man whose sausage they devoured came, and he asked them how his meat tasted. When the girls said that his big sausage tasted juicy, he was glad to hear that, telling the others that they were just like them. One of the girls and her grandma remembered the time they were saved by them, and slowly, all the others realized they could actually trust the fairies. Together, they teleported most of the citizens away, but just then, the monsters had found their hideout, so Runa and Sora decided to split up their powers to teleport the others away. As Kanade and Tanya continued fighting the beasts, the other adventurers arrived, and the knights revealed that this was the orders from the Adventurers Guild. And when Ruby begged them to help Rein's stinky ass and his comrades, Donovan came with a crate full of weapons, saying that his greatest creations were going to be free as he had a debt to repay to Rein. So the adventurers created a line for him to fight the demon, and Rein thanked all of them, promising to save the city now. At the same time, Sora teleported the citizens away while Runa burnt all of the demons, and Nina wondered how she could also be helping them. She'd been scared her entire life, so she wondered if it was always okay to be the one getting protected. And once Sora was done teleporting all of the villagers away, she realized that Nina had gone missing. At the same time, Rein realized that the demon was still too far away, but Tanya knew her dragon form would only make her a target to be instantly eliminated, while the fairy's teleportation magic would take too long to activate for Rein to use it. Just then, Nina ran to hug Rein, saying that she can't run away while others protected her, so she wanted to help them out. Both of the girls realized that she was the demigod they needed, as demigods were the only ones capable of instant teleportation. So Rein asked her if she could help him, and she promised that she would. But just then, a horde of beasts began approaching them, so Kanade and Tanya promised to take care of them while Rein dealt with the demon. However, the demon thought Rein was a foolish insect, and tried to blast him before he Spider-Man'd away, and continued evading all of his attacks with his gauntlet. Once he got closer to his height, the demon prepared his ultimate blow, but Nina teleported them away in the last instant. Together, they began flying closer to the demon, and although the demon realized they were using this ability to fly, Rein decided to boost his own powers, but the demon told him that it was already over for him. As he unleashed all of his dragons, Rein revealed that his boost could do more than enhance physical abilities, and teleported closer to the demon, sealing him with his taming bands. However, the demonic aura began spreading to Rein, and as it swallowed all of him, Rein knew there was people who cared about him, that counted on him, so he awakened the taming god powers inside of him, overriding all of the dragon's taming. Even in all the millions of years the demons lived, this was the first time anyone's accomplished the impossible, and Rein raised his hand, saying that he couldn't do this without his comrades. As the demon freed himself, Rein launched all of the dragons towards him. As the demon was about to vanish, he wondered what his name was, but Rein said that he ain't no snitch, and the demon vanished away. However, Nina's mana was completely drained, and they began falling towards the ground before Tanya managed to catch them. At the same time, Kanade and all the other girls were waiting for him, and the sun began to rise after the evil was extinguished. 3 days later, the girls began helping the others in rebuilding the city, and the store manager kept feeding the fairies his massive sausage. After a few hours passed, Nina told Rein that she wanted to keep helping him on his adventures, but Rein didn't know if he could even tame a demigod. However, all the girls knew he'd already accomplished far greater things, so he took off his gloves before biting his finger and began the summoning ritual. The taming seals began surrounding her, and after she said her name back to him, the magical sigil bands began flowing into her hand, sealing their contract as his new pet. Kanade was glad to have a new smaller sister, but Tanya wanted to also cuddle her, and Runa was glad to have a new younger sister that wasn't a grumpy bitch like her current one. All of them were glad to have a new sister in the group, and Rein smiled seeing how all of them were happy. Later that day at the Adventurers Guild, Ruby said that Rein was promoted to C rank, and that all of the adventurers agreed that he deserved to jump all the way from E rank directly. When he heard that he was going to be a top G, he revealed that their inn was getting too small, and wondered if there was a bigger room that their broke asses could move into. But after hearing that, Ruby told him that it would be better for them to buy a home, since she could use it to trap them in the city. Even so, all the girls thought that it would be amazing to have a home where they could live together, so Rein agreed that they should all buy a house. But after a while of seeing dumbass-looking homes, they realized there might not be any homes for them. Just then, however, Ruby showed them the final home, saying it was a beautiful mansion with a massive bathtub for all the plot development they would want, and was even the cheapest home in the entire nation. However, Tanya thought something was fishy, and it wasn't the way Ruby smelled, since this deal seemed way too good to be true. So Ruby decided to reveal the truth, saying that the house is actually haunted. While the rest of them were fine, Kanade screamed because she couldn't handle ghosts, and when Runa wondered what the ghosts would do, Ruby said they were awful. They would flip your pillow over, make bathwater cold, and even put curry underneath your seat so it looks like you shat yourself. All of them thought this wasn't that serious, but Kanade said she could just sleep outside if it was necessary. However, Rein thought it was worth seeing how the house was inside before deciding, and they all entered inside. As they walked deeper into the house, Nina sneezing gave Kanade a heart attack. But Tanya realized that the house was actually clean for how abandoned it was. Just then, however, all the furniture began moving, and a woman's voice began screaming at them to get out. Before their eyes, a hot maid appeared, and the fairies thought they could use their magic to make her disappear. But she kept reappearing in front of them, and grew angry as she screamed at them to leave. When she saw that, Tanya realized that the maid probably had no attack magic, and although they uncovered her secret, she saw Kanade's vulnerable ass and decided to bully her to get out. But when she was cornered, Kanade swore that she wasn't afraid, and managed to slash down her magical body. Her fear allowed her to transcend the abilities of her ultimate species, and she began using astral attacks while attempting to bite off the ghost. At the same time, the twins created an astral barrier so she would be unable to escape, and Tanya held Kanade off before she devoured the maid. Once they were calm, Rein asked her if she wanted to talk now, but the maid thought she needed to possess Rein. However, he commanded her to stop, and in that instant, she froze in her place. When she wondered how that was possible, he revealed that an old man taught him about phantom taming. But when she asked him to go on, he told her that was the whole story. Even the ghost wondered how that explained his broken, overpowered abilities, but all the other girls were used to it. With his powers, he was able to push her to the ground, so the maid gave up and told them to just burn her up. However, Rein decided to introduce himself to her, saying that he wanted to just talk. After hearing those words, she thought he was interesting, and introduced herself as Tina Holy, a maid who died serving inside of this house. When Tanya wondered how she ended up as a ghost, Tina revealed that her previous boss was a womanizer sadist who killed her off, so she became a ghost without even knowing it. However, she realized that it was time for her to move out instead of scaring them. But Rein asked Kanade if she was still scared of her, so she told him that she would be fine as long as all of them were with her. As Rein patted her on the head, all of them smiled, and he asked her if she would like to live with them. After all, her existence made the home's price cheaper, so he wanted her to stay anyway. And Tanya told her to just accept his kindness. So he stood up, telling her that he looks forward to living with her, and she agreed to become part of his party. Back inside the guild, Rein signed the contract to own the home. And Ruby thought it was amazing how he was able to add even a ghost to his party. So Ruby welcomed him, saying that Horizon was now his home. But those words shocked Rein, and he was glad to finally have a place to call home. At the same time in the city, the hero approached a shopkeeper, demanding a week's worth of rations from him for free. However, the shopkeeper said he didn't have anything to offer to their ugly asses, saying that they were a worthless party that couldn't care less about their city that was under attack. Hearing his insolence, they thought about getting rations from a different shopkeeper, but all of them swore that they wouldn't help a worthless hero like him, and all the villagers told him to get his cowardly party out of their city. Seeing that he was cornered, he slashed down the shopkeeper's stand before leaving. As he walked, one of the villagers said that the beast tamer was more of a hero than he would ever be, and Arios swore to kill Rein one day. Later that day, Kanade was glad that Rein would finally sleep on a bed instead of the floor. That night, Tina prepared a feast for them with Runa, and all the girls were excited to devour Rein's meat. Just then, Nina thanked Rein, saying that she was finally not alone because of him. After hearing those words, he remembered how he had lost everything in this world, and how a hole had opened in his heart ever since. Although Tina thought they were lucky to be a family, the girls said that she wasn't alone either, because she was now part of their family. As Rein stared at them, he realized that joining the hero's party was nothing but escapism from the void he felt while living alone. But now that he had people who actually cared about him, he finally remembered how it felt to have a family. As all the other girls stared at him, they wondered why he was crying, and he played it off as if he was just crying to eat the food already. But deep down, he knew that it was because of all the new bonds he'd created on this adventure, the new home he gained, and the new family he can always come back to.